are listening to This is Oklahoma, hosted by Mike Hearn, telling stories of Oklahomans and those that have made it their home.
This podcast is presented by the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, who have been telling Oklahoma's story through its people since 1927. Follow them online at oklahomahof.com, and then definitely follow them on Instagram for all the information that you need, because I'm sure that's where you follow us as well, at oklahomahof. Let's get into today's episode.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma. Mike Hearn here, your host, back with another episode down in Oklahoma City today. Huge shout out to Elise and Table Investments for having us, because the actual recording place we were supposed to, we're in the middle of an ice storm and they don't have power. So if you hear some things going on in the background, we're in an active working office, so I apologize for that. But the good thing is we actually are doing a podcast today. And my guest, we were just talking, we have been trying to do this for since the podcast started, but my guest today is Elise Wade from Oklahoma State, and I guess famous for riding Bullet, right?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. And I think famous is like a really big word. I don't know if I can fill those boots, but I mean, I did ride Bullet. Yeah. It was pretty cool.
And they are boots we've grown up literally wearing probably since you were born.
I've told people I've been riding horses longer than I've been walking, quite literally.
That's so cool. I think I saw, I was doing some research, looking through the pictures on your Instagram, and I always go to the tagged photos to see, because when you go to someone's tagged photos, the reason I say that is when you go to someone's tagged photos, you see all the professional photos that have had taken of them. And I saw the ones that were done probably when you, at the end of your riding Bullet, and you're in the stadium and you've got your stuff on, and Bullet's not in the photos, but those photos are really good.
That was one of my favorite photo shoots I got to do, and a really good friend of mine took them for me. So
I think I'm going to repost those once this podcast goes out, because they're really good photos.
Oh, thank you.
I mean, I guess we will get into riding Bullet, but the whole story, right? Where are you born and raised?
I was born and raised on a horse farm in Enid, Oklahoma. My dad trained horses for about 20 years, and then right around the time I was born, he wanted to be a dad, and he also realized that there comes a point in time when you have so many clients that own horses that people were really comfortable with him, and he'd be in the middle of a riding lesson, and then they would just tell him everything about what's going on in their family. But for some reason, there's something comforting about being on the back of a horse and being in a barn. It's warm and it's inviting, and you feel like those people are family. And you trust the people that you're around, because there's something that connects you other than just being family with them. Okay. And he started realizing that he really enjoyed being a part of these people's world like that. Yeah. And we were talking about SNU earlier. My dad got his master's from Southern Nazarene and is now a marriage and family therapist, and will finish his doctorate pretty soon. Yeah. Yep. And then my mom, she is an anesthesiologist, so she's a medical doctor and has been in Enid since she got out of medical school at OU. And then they just had me, and I kind of got to take on the horse riding side of things, and my parents gave me every little girl's dream. I had ponies coming out of my ears.
Do you have brothers and sisters?
I do have an older sister. She's actually a kindergarten teacher there in Enid, and I have two nephews and a niece that are my entire world. We were talking about kids earlier, and I call them my kids because they are. And my sister was sending me pictures of them yesterday playing in the ice, which most people would be like, "Oh, you want to see pictures playing in the snow?" No, my kids play in the ice.
So you do when you grow up in Enid, right? Or you grow up in kind of remote towns that are away from the cities, and I've got friends that live up in Okachi, and they run ranches and cattle in there, and they're like, it doesn't stop. They're busy all day.
Oh yeah.
But that's really cool. So you are so comfortable on a horse. It's literally like riding a bike.
It's it's literally my comfort zone.
Yeah. I have when you grow up in the UK, you don't. I have friends who ride and I have friends who race horses, but I just
that's a big deal over there.
Yeah, I just was not into it. I think I had a bad experience when I was a kid, and I was walking a horse, and he'd freaked out, and I'm a golfer, right? And
I feel like that's everyone's thing is oh, you ride horses? That's cool. I rode one once when I was little, and he bucked me off or he bit me, so I never did it again.
We went back. Me and my wife went back, and my friend who does the racehorse stuff, they have a school or whatever, and they do rides with people, and they take tours or whatever, and it's right next to the coast, and there's this amazing video of it's like the Guinness commercial. Have you ever seen the Guinness commercial where the horses are riding through the waves?
Maybe
like a white
Guinness
horse.
beer.
Yeah, probably not because we grew up here, but
I was gonna say, I don't know. I see Coors Light commercials.
yeah. But like it's this whole scene of like these horses running through down the beach, right, as the waves are crashing in.
Oh, I'm gonna have to look that up.
I'll show it to you when we get done recording. But like that is, I'm like, I am so impatient. I'm like, I want to do that, right? But I've got to learn to ride a horse first.
Yeah.
But
gotta walk before
they
you
do
can run.
tours, yeah. And my wife got to ride and do a tour with my friend's girlfriend. Was like, I'll do that with you. I'm like, great, you take her. I'm gonna go with and hang out, like, and sit in the pub or whatever. But that's like my view of riding a horse. Not like I need to skip the learning phase, which nobody can do. But I think I need to do
I
it.
think you'd be really famous if you didn't have to learn how to ride a horse. Like if you just like decided, I'm
Yeah.
gonna learn how to ride a horse today, and then you already
And you
know.
just got it.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
That'd be awesome. So growing up in Enid, literally with ponies and horses everywhere, I'm sure mum and dad really enjoyed that because they could, I guess that when your dad made that choice to career change and your mum was already in medical school and doing that stuff, that was probably a release for them, right? To be able to like, it wasn't a job for them to do horses anymore.
Right. Well, kind of at that point, I don't know why. I'm not saying I had an ability at a young age, but it didn't take very long. Like I didn't. A lot of kids will have what are called like made, but they're like already trained horses for them when they get them. And I grew up and I had a really great pony. My first pony, she was awesome. But then after that, we couldn't afford for me just to have all these really, really fancy, well-made ponies. So it's like my parents weren't just giving me a Mercedes. I was basically in the garage building like this go-kart. So we would have horses at a young age that we would train and were getting trained for me. And that I was having to help train too. And so that kind of did become a business. And so it took it from just the fun riding around in the barn to I got to travel across the country every weekend and was competing at horse shows for 3 weeks at a time, whether in like California or Florida or down in Texas. And so that side was a business, but at the same time, I wouldn't trade those hours in the barn for anything. And like we always joke that some of my best dinner time conversations were sitting in our dually on the way to a horse show with my mom and my dad and me eating pizza off the console. So I don't know. We had some really great family time, but it was serious. My dad's always called me a pressure player, and that's because I've been competing since I was young. So that I am comfortable. We talked about being comfortable on the back of a horse.
Yeah.
I'm comfortable competing. I'm comfortable being in competition, and it's, I don't know, that's where I enjoyed being. And I don't know, both of my parents were extremely competitive. So growing up and having them, they told me they would never hand me anything on a silver platter, but they would make sure I had every opportunity to be successful. And they just kind of let me run with it.
Yeah, that horse show, like the stuff, what exactly were you doing? Were you like doing, and I know absolutely nothing, I know a little bit, meaning that I know like there's barrel racing and all roping, and that's as far as my knowledge goes. What were you into? What were you doing?
I grew up riding in the United States Equestrian Federation, the USEF, and I showed hunter jumpers. And so from an early age, a lot of kids will start on the pony hunters. I'll show you some pictures later.
Okay.
But they're like these cute little ponies and they braid them and stuff. I don't know, like I know you're big on like Instagram stuff, but if there's not very long ago it came out that Kylie Jenner bought this pony that came over from like Ireland, I think is where it got shipped in from, and they spent however much money on it. But that pony had already been here in the States and had already been famous.
Yeah.
But that's those ponies. Like they're clean and they're pretty and they're cute and they have braids and they're fun and you give them peppermints. But
They're
it's
Instagram
jumping
ponies,
stuff.
yeah.
You're judged on the pony's ability and then your ability as a rider.
Okay. So that stuff's
That's
not
what I
easy,
started
right?
with anyway.
Okay. So, and was it kind of, I don't know, were people kind of like shocked that you were doing this at a young age?
Yes.
Yeah.
It depends on like the people who
know, right?
Well, there was the people I was showing with, and those were my best friends early on. Were halfway across the country. I got to see them only on the weekends, but I was the weird horse girl all through elementary school, and I got made fun of, and it was not really very fun for me.
Because you were traveling all the time and you were in school.
People didn't get it. It was just you're the horse kid and talk about horses all the time and what you were doing. And I'm like, well, I was literally in Wellington last week, but it's fine.
Yeah, I kind of have a similar experience. I was the golf kid in high school growing up, and you know, like
Yeah,
I said,
'cause you were extremely competitive.
It's an old man sport. Why are you doing that? You know, why aren't you coming out on the weekend? So I'm teeing off at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Right.
That's why, you know, and obviously with horses, you're up a lot earlier and
Right.
You know.
I didn't do like the little girl sleepovers and stuff. Like if I had time to have a sleepover, then I needed to get in bed because my dad would be like, I mean, it's going to get hot tomorrow. We're going to need to get up and ride in the morning.
Yeah. So you said you started doing the run and jump stuff. So what did you progress into?
So the hunter jumper deal I did early on, but my dad had trained, they're called all-around horses, so like the Western Pleasure, the people in the sparkly shirts and the cowboy hats. So I did the all-around a little bit too. And then not very long after that, my chosen aunt and uncle that are horse trainers, one of my dad's best friends is a rope horse trainer, and his wife was training barrel horses, and well, I mean for herself, but she had a really cool horse, and I was like, I want to be a barrel racer.
Yeah.
I want a barrel horse, and I just want to graduate from my pony onto a big horse because I'm going to run a barrel horse at the county fair.
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds so silly. And
But it was like a big deal to you.
it was. I didn't get to do it all the time. I was clean and like well groomed and polished all the time with the hunter jumper stuff, and I was like, someday I'm going to be a barrel racer.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do it at the county fair. And so my dad called my Aunt Cicely and was like, hey, like, do you have just like an older horse that Elise can just take and just have for the weekend that's not going to like try to buck her off or anything, you know, and be pretty nice to her? And she was like, well, I had this other one, but he was hurt at the time, but you can take Maddie. And my dad was like, no, that one is young, and I've seen you ride him. He is wild. That's not going to happen. And she's like, no, you don't understand. Like, she'll be fine. I ended up getting this horse, and he was young, and I was young, and he took care of me, and I ended up having him for almost 10 years. Actually, I probably did have him for 10 years.
Yeah.
And we sold him to a little girl in California, or not California, in Colorado about a year ago.
Yeah.
And he's still getting to run barrels, but I mean, he took me from the county fair trotting to, I got to go to some really cool rodeos on him, and I got bit with the rodeo bug right around then.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm really gonna do it this
Because
time.
it's super competitive.
Oh
isn't it?
yeah.
Especially on
And it's
time
awesome,
and
but it's
stuff and-
loud. It was not the prim and proper hunter jumper thing that I was used to. I was like, these
Yeah.
people are having fun.
Yeah.
But I'd already been around it because from a younger age, while I was doing the hunter jumper stuff, my parents got me involved in Rodeo Queen competitions. And I wasn't a competitor, but they wanted me to have the confidence and have something that could teach me to carry myself in a room and be able to be comfortable talking to people and speak on a microphone and be able to learn how to study and things like that. And so getting involved with the Rodeo Queen thing, like I said, I'd already been around rodeo, and I was like, I really like this one. I really like this sport. I really want to get more into it. And then I fell in love with it.
Yeah. So when you know, how old are you and what time do you fall in love with the Rodeo Queen stuff?
Oh man. I was on stage at a Rodeo Queen pageant at 3 years old.
Okay.
And it was the Miss Rodeo Oklahoma pageant when it was in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And I did it every year until I was
So it was
probably
always
9.
something that you did, but then
yeah.
when you got to that, you're like, oh, now.
Yeah, it wasn't until I got the barrel horse that I really wanted to start competing in rodeo.
Gotcha.
Before that, I just really enjoyed, rodeo queens are basically the PR representatives for the sport.
Sure.
And so at that point, I was just learning to be a salesman.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And so, I mean, timeline. It's really hard to give you a timeline
Yeah.
on these things because
Everything just matches together, but just comes to.
I am one of the most blessed people on this planet, and I'm very fortunate. And like I said earlier, my parents gave me every opportunity I wanted to be successful. If I told them that I wanted to do something, they were very serious that I was not going to half-ass it, if you will.
Yeah.
Like they were like, you're going to get in this and you're going to do it.
Yeah.
And I did. So I have had the opportunity to do a lot of really cool things that I somehow managed to mesh together.
Right.
I really don't know how.
Yeah. But it's something that you love doing. So
Yeah.
like when things.
I'm a busybody.
Yeah, but that's the good thing, right? Is that when you're busy, you're always doing things that you love doing, or it's something that it's working towards something that there's an end goal here, and all these things come together. And okay, I'm going to do the Rodeo Queen. I've always been doing it.
Yeah.
Now I'm really going to jump on stage, or I'm going to take a different approach and go run, do barrel racing. Like it's all around something you love doing.
Right, and working.
Right?
I love working. I love working towards something. And I set little goals here and there, and I set big goals, and I don't know. You just have to do it, and
Yeah.
if you don't hit something, you learn from it. So
you traveled all around the country doing Rodeo Queen stuff as well as racing.
yeah, well, the horse show stuff and then the Rodeo Queen stuff, I got to travel a lot and meet a lot of really incredible people. My friend that I told you that lives in London now, when I was younger, she used to call me her 25-year-old in a 7-year-old's body.
Yeah.
You had to be mature at that point. I mean, you couldn't sit in a room with executives from Wrangler or from the Professional Rodeo Cowboys Association and not carry yourself well at the age of 9.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it has kind of parallels to golf then, because like when you're a kid growing up, you always play around older men, right? You always play with older golfers, and like you have an old head on your shoulders growing up. You know how to converse.
You've seen a lot.
Yeah, you have. But I mean, you also learn every cuss word in the book playing golf as well.
Yeah.
I'm sure the same in rodeo. But like, yeah, I mean, it's kind of with that is you grow up a lot quicker, don't you? You're not like stuck in a classroom or running around with kids that are the same age as you. You're growing up around, men and women who are successful and who are in places of influence and people that you might aspire to be.
Right.
So
I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah, where does, obviously you were going to OSU, right? Like, it's kind of like, it's natural, as every other ag person I speak to or cowboy that I speak to is the same. I mean, Oklahoma has such a great reputation for the ag industry. Were you at the point where you're thinking of going to college, was it like a little goal or a dream to be on the team and ride bullet and all that stuff? Or was it, that I have an opportunity here, I am going to go to school, and because I'm sure you had other opportunities as well.
I did. Growing up, I wanted to be on an equestrian team. I looked at several other schools that we don't really need to discuss, but the opportunities were there for sure. And I really did strongly consider it. But growing up, my parents used to say, "Oh, our pin is only going to write in orange and black." But then, as we had to start really taking things into consideration and my future into consideration, that Oklahoma State became a little bit, it wasn't just the end goal. It was part of like this group of other schools that I really needed to take seriously.
Sure.
But from probably first grade, I think, I was doing the hunter jumpers, and it's a completely, and horse people, we understand they're completely different worlds between rodeo and the horse show thing, and even just being the spirit rider. And that, being the spirit rider wasn't ever really on my mind until I had one of my really good friends whose dad was actually a doctor too, that she was like, obsessed with Oklahoma State University. Like, she had OSU things everywhere. Like, her parents' cars had OSU stuff on them and whatnot. And she's like, "You're gonna ride bullet someday." And I'm like, that'd be pretty cool, but I don't like it. It is what it is. I'm probably not gonna go there. I'm gonna go somewhere else.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get out of Oklahoma. And it was always on my mind, I guess. But in high school, I was like, I'm not going there. Like I said, I'm getting out of Oklahoma. And then I don't know what happened. I wish I could nail it down to a specific day or if I saw something. But I just had like this realization. I was like, if I don't go to OSU, I will never have the opportunity to ride bullet.
Yeah.
And that was it. And that sounds so silly. Like, oh, I picked school because I wanted to be the spirit rider.
Yeah.
And I didn't expect it to happen as fast as it did. I was a freshman, and we knew the people that run the program. And I bugged them, and I was like, when do applications come out? When is the tryouts going to be, and all this stuff? And they just kind of kept me involved and in the loop. No one has ever had ridden bullet had been chosen as a freshman and gotten a ride as a sophomore.
Okay.
And I went in there and I remember sitting in my interview and they were like, "Are you going to be okay with just being on the ground crew if you're chosen?" I was like, "Oh my gosh, the fact that you guys even let me be here is incredible. Of course I want to be on the ground crew, kind of get to see everything, figure out how it works, just being there and being a part of this program is something I've dreamt of from being a little girl. So of course that would be fine." And I found out close to midnight that night that I had gotten chosen to ride, and I was bawling. My dad was downstairs still watching TV, and my mom had already gone to bed, and I was like, "I don't know what you're doing, but I need you to turn TV off for a second." And because, my dad has been beside me my entire life with the horse stuff. Like I said, he trained horses.
Yeah.
And so something like that, of the magnitude of what it is, he was so excited, and he was like, Sandra, I need you to wake up for just a second. And we were all crying. Oh my goodness. I could cry right now thinking about it.
Yeah.
So bullet pretty much brought me to Oklahoma State University.
Yeah. Oh, it's so cool. I love it. Like, I love stories like that because it's, you know, it's so special. It means so much. You know, just to have those memories, right? Like, you're gonna have that forever. Like that moment of calling your dad or whatever, and then waking up your mum, and like, you've just been given this opportunity.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so cool. Like,
it
gives me chills thinking about it.
it gives me chills thinking about it too. I mean, I still hear the band, and I still get chills about it. Or I see pictures or videos, and I can almost put myself back in the position. And you don't understand what it feels like, and I didn't. I felt like the spirit rider. I knew I was a spirit rider, but the first game, you don't get to go out there until the band run is like happening. Like, that's the first thing the Bullet does, is the band run at the beginning of the games. Like, the team hasn't even come out yet, but the band is playing.
And you run between everybody.
Yeah, but you don't get to go and sit in there. You don't get to watch it happen yet, other than practice. You sit in the tunnel, like, underneath, because Bullet has a stall. Like, you go into your tunnel and then turn right and then go a little bit, and there's a stall that he waits in. And because so many things are happening down there, he has to wait right there until like that exact moment. And again, with being the pressure player, I've had a lot of really incredible opportunities to be in loud situations. I was a flag girl at the Wrangler National Finals Rodeo in Las Vegas the year before.
Okay.
And I thought I knew what sitting in a tunnel with 20,000 people was like, and it being dark and loud and whatnot. I thought I knew. And that was I'm really glad that I had the opportunity to do that too, because it geared me up for this one.
Yeah.
And I was like, I got this. But I come out of the tunnel because it's dark down there, and then you just have like this light hit you.
Yeah.
And then it's loud. There is nothing on this planet like 60,000 football fans screaming and yelling and stomping and clapping. And I like looked up, and I was like, I don't know what happened, but I was able just to wipe that clean. I was like, I cannot look at this yet. And then I just went right down the field, and I'll have to find the video. But I was trotting back down the sideline after going down the middle of the band, and I was like looking around, and then I really got to like figure it out. And I kind of, in the video, I'm kind of like, I take a breath, and then I start swinging the flag, and I was in it. In it. Like, I love stuff like that, but there's nothing like that. I mean, I felt like, you know, like in the movie Dreamer, when like they say something about when he galloped, the ground beneath him shook, and like the earth, blah 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 blah, whatever the quote is. Like I felt that. Like, this entire stadium, Boone Pickens Stadium, just shakes and it rattles. Oh man, that's the one that gives me chills.
So good. That must have felt amazing.
Electric.
Like, you know, you got the stadium on top of you, right? Like, screaming, shouting, orange power, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then you come out of the smoke, right? Kind of.
No, they only did the smoke. The team comes out of the smoke.
You come out, you run down between the band.
Yeah, they only ran Bullet out in the smoke one time.
Okay.
And I got a really cool picture, but it was a little dangerous. So
you come out like down between everybody. Everyone's going nuts. And so my parents came to town. Actually, it was 2 or 3 weeks ago, this time last year. And I went to homecoming. And a friend of ours, they'd never been to a game before. Like, we do not do college sports. Like, I mean, it's non-existent.
Really?
Right? Yeah, like, it's, you know,
is that why you chose the States then? Here?
Oh yeah, it's so much better being here.
Really?
Like, the sports, like the amount of money and the amount of time and the amount of fandom in sports here is 100 times better than back home.
We're very competitive.
Yeah, and it's just amazing. So when a friend of ours surprised me, my dad, and my brother with box seats, or club level, whatever it is, for homecoming.
At OSU?
At OSU, yeah. Last year's homecoming. And they'd never been to a game, right? So my brother and my dad's first game is homecoming last year.
We have America's Greatest Homecoming. I don't know if you know that, but you know that now.
Exactly. So we go to the game, and like my dad, you know, we're up kind of club level. We get our seats, they're having free food and drinks or whatever, having a great time. And then the band comes out, right? And I just remember the first time that my brother's like, you know, what is going on? Like, this is like, this happens all around the country.
Oh, yeah.
Every single game, like, this is what it's like. It's nuts. And they just couldn't believe it. Here. And then when Bullet comes out, right, and my dad's like, what's that? I'm like,
and with Oklahoma State Spirit Rider, it was Harley Huff last year. Harley Huff, here comes
exactly,
Bullet.
like that whole thing, and like, I thought it was amazing. Like, my dad's out there, typical dad, with
like, there's a horse.
taking videos and pictures and all that. Like, he's got some great, because you're quite high up, being at club level, you've got some great vantage points, and they absolutely loved it. Like,
Really?
it was awesome.
And the horse was cool to you guys. I love
Yeah,
that.
like they was like, you know, it's because horse racing, it's
Yeah.
racing back home, and it's
Yeah.
like Chepstow races or all this stuff. Like, it's
Yeah.
quite a big deal, but never like barrel stuff or rodeo. Like, it's always like track racing, or you might see like the dressage stuff.
Yeah.
You know, like the side-based trotting,
Beautiful.
fancy, beautiful. Like, you know, you have royals and people who've done that stuff, but that must have felt so good coming
Yeah.
out, and then like having that like that exhale,
You
right?
get-
Like,
yeah.
okay, now I get to take it all in. I've kind of done my bit. I've just got to get the horse back in.
Yeah, now I just gotta go back in there and wait for the game to start.
Yeah. So I have a friend who used to be one of the marketing managers for Eskimo Joe's. And
Really?
her job was to get Joe and Buddy, right, out on the times at the game. And she said, she
man.
told me that she's like, that Bullet hates those two.
He did.
Right?
He doesn't like their heads.
Yeah.
Like if they look at him, he didn't like it. They would have to turn around.
That's what she was
and,
saying,
like,
yeah.
walk up against the wall.
She was like the handler for the whole game, and because I said when I found that out, I'm like, I would love to put that suit on and get out there.
Right.
Like, I don't care if it's 100 degrees. Like, put me in that suit, and I'll go and throw t-shirts out, do whatever. And like,
Nothing
you know,
worse than your first time like on
Exactly.
U.S. soil when
Yeah.
you said it was just 100 outside.
Right. Now I'm like, let's do it. And she's like, okay, well, we can try. And then she doesn't work there anymore. Yeah, like when she said the Bullet hates those two, I was like, that's what the question I want to ask you. I was like, what is that like
He
when
didn't
he's
like
freaking
those.
out?
He didn't like the tubas. They
Yeah.
would have to turn and face the wall too. And then the cheerleaders and the pom girls would have to put their pom poms behind their back because he
Really?
didn't. Well, they were shiny and they
Oh,
rattled
yeah.
and they sounded weird
Yeah.
to him. But no, I mean, he never really like freaked on anything. He just didn't like it. Like you just knew he wouldn't. Like
Yeah.
he'd be like, you know, like girls when you get like the side eye, you're like,
Yeah, a bit of an
that's what he
attitude.
would do. He would just sit there and he'd be like, I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't like them.
Do you have any moments like where he wouldn't go back in like
No.
down the tunnel?
No,
Has that happened before?
I was Bullet's last full season
Okay.
as Bullet when they retired him the next year.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, at that point, I was his 11th season, I believe.
Yeah.
Honestly, he was taking me everywhere I needed to go. Like, he knew exactly where
He
he
knew
was
the
headed.
show,
Like, he
yeah.
would go out on the field. Like, I'd have to kind of steer him because he was a little bit naughty sometimes. But as soon as we were back in the tunnel, he would just get up against the wall and he would just stand there.
Yeah.
Just wait it out. And he would
Yeah.
know. Oh, man.
So cool. So that first game, like after that first game, you're like, this is like, I get to do this for the rest of the year. Every
Oh,
game.
I mean, I was sad the first game. Like, as soon as the first game was over, I was like,
Yeah.
like, I mean, like I said, I've had a lot of really cool opportunities that you only get for a year. As a rodeo queen, most titles you only have for 1 year.
Yeah.
And as soon as the first game happened, I went, oh no.
Yeah.
Like, this is about to fly. Because, I mean, they literally, time truly does fly when you're having fun.
Right.
And it felt like that
Yeah.
from the first game to the last. And
And like,
it just never stops.
Unfortunately for OSU, like sometimes you have a bad season,
Yeah.
which is more than
And
most
Bullet
seasons,
hangs out in
and
the tunnel.
just sit in the tunnel the whole game, right? Like,
I was really, really fortunate too. I mean, we had,
was it the year
we
you were
had-
doing on the 10-0 run or something? Was it that year? Or was that the following year?
I don't know. I was the last year that we had like Mason Rudolph graduated after.
Okay. Yeah.
After mine, so we had him and James Washington, and they were electric together.
Yeah.
And so I just got to sit and watch two of some of the most famous football players to ever come through Oklahoma State's program, and be there for their last games too. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah. Oh, must be so good.
Because I mean, I really did. I got to watch good football.
Yeah.
I had the
you're
best
right
seat in the
there.
house.
Yeah. Yeah, because like I guess Bullock goes back to his stall and you like just
Well, no, actually during the game, you stay in the tunnel.
Sure. So you just sit
So the
with
tunnel,
him.
I just get to literally sit in the corner
Yeah.
of the field, and I just stay there. Yeah,
Yeah.
people really can't, like people, and that probably, the crowd was amazing, the feeling of galloping across the field, amazing. But one of the coolest things to me was the kids that knew where he was.
Okay.
And like, I mean, like I said, not really big on the whole kid thing, but
Yeah.
there is a very, very special feeling about pure joy and care about something. It's like a Disney princess.
Sure.
You know,
Yeah,
they,
you're an icon to these people.
and honestly, and it's not me. And that was probably one of the biggest reality checks I had. My dad and I sat and talked about it. And
Yeah.
my dad is very, very good about like keeping me grounded and reminding me like there's a reason you're doing
Sure.
this. There's a reason for this.
Yeah.
Bullet has been around since the 80s. And there's grandparents that were there when he started being Bullet. And there's those people's kids that knew him when they were going to school. Their bullet means something to people. And it's not just like this cool horse, but I mean, he is a recognizable symbol to Oklahoma State University. He is the spirit of Oklahoma State University. Yeah. He represents everything that is good about the cowboy way at Oklahoma State. And so the fact that I just got to be a part of that and sit on him and be able to guide him around the field and whatever and take care of him and brush him. I would pet this horse and I'd like look at him and I'd be at home, at the place that he stays over near Tulsa, and I would just be like, man, I am the luckiest girl in the world. People are obsessed with this horse. He means so much to everyone that's a fan of Oklahoma State University. And so I'll go back to when I'm sitting in the tunnel, there's kids that know where he waits. Sure. And they would get this, and like security guards would let them go see Bullet. And they would get to come down there and they would look down and they would just want to like look at him and they would want a picture with him, or they would want me to sign something. Yeah. And I would always sign my name and then I'd sign Bullet. And they're like, Bullet signed it too. Oh my goodness. That was probably the most special part of it, is like people would bring their kids down there. And like there's a little girl that still does this. Every year she dresses up and she puts her little chaps on and she puts a black cowboy hat on, and because she wants to look like the Spirit Rider. Someday she wants to be the Spirit Rider. Yeah. And she comes to find Bullet every year.
That's special.
Oh yeah, but it's very pure. You know?
Yeah, and you're right with the whole, like, it is like a Disney princess, right? Like,
yeah. You know, kids get excited. They go to Disney World and they get to see Cinderella, and they're like, oh, like she really exists. Yeah. Like they see Bullet on TV. They see pictures of him all over campus. They see like his stuffed animals and everything, and then he's like really there, you know.
Oh, it's horses, like, and even me, like, not like being a cowboy or a horse person or someone who just grows up around it. Like, I understand them. Like, they're just special. Yeah. You know, they've got a demeanor. They're like, they're just, you know, they're just not your average animal, right?
Anyway, Winston Churchill once said, there is nothing better for the inside of a man than the outside of a horse. And that could not be more true, especially with a horse like Bullet.
Yeah. It's like even the history behind it, right? Like, and, you know, horses in general, right? Like, you know, there's some great movies out there with horses, and A War Horse is a great movie.
Yeah, I saw that in theaters.
Like, yeah, and the guy is like, you know, they find the horse, don't they? And he's like covered in mud. And he's like, it's my horse. It's my horse. And he's blind, right, at the scene. And then like, and he comes out and he's like, look, he's got like a, you know, he's got a white, his back left foot's white or whatever. And like they wash him and like, yeah, it's my horse. Like he's a war horse. Like that. It's just such a huge scene.
You know, it's so corny, but you and I were, like you asked me earlier about like my timeline and everything. And even the stuff that I've done that hasn't included horses, and I get, man, I don't like being corny. This is so corny. But almost every cool thing I've had the opportunity to do has involved horses or the horse industry.
It's the same for me with golf, though. Every opportunity that I've ever had, that I've ever been given, that I've ever taken advantage of,
you can root it back to that.
Everything comes back to golf. I wouldn't be here without it. You know, like it's same. Like you wouldn't growing up riding horses. Like you wouldn't have been where you were. Everything adds up when you look at it back in a timeline. Everything adds up, and it's great to just sit around and do that every now and then, right? To just be like, oh, like I met this person while I was competing at this race halfway across the country, or this thing, and then now
and then I get to do this with them,
And because of that person, we both met this one, and you know, you mentioned being in rooms with executives at the age of 9. Yeah, like, everything comes back to something.
It does.
So that year is like that year is just absolutely amazing. Right, like, and obviously you're going to school at the same time, right?
Oh man,
and, you know, riding Bullet is like the highlight of every week, but you still got to go to school, and you know,
and I did.
Yeah, and but you also got to take care of him as well. Like, you know, everyone just sees you ride, but obviously they don't see. All the fans don't see you. You know, like brushing him and doing all the rest of it, taking care of him, training and all that. Yeah. So how was all? You know, what? Tell me about that.
That was hard. That was hard.
People don't know about.
I wouldn't trade it for the world, and I don't know what they do now. I know I probably did extra things, but I was only in Stillwater 2 or 3 nights a week.
Yeah.
And I would get up and I would go to class, and then I would go to Tulsa, where he is, or Sapulpa technically, and I would ride him, and then I would do my homework, and then I would go to bed at the coach's house, and I would get up the next morning and I would ride him, and then I would go back to school. Yeah. And then I would pretty much repeat that for the entire season. Yeah, the whole season.
Yeah.
And there was a few times where I needed to even go back. Like we would have finished a game and something, and like the coaches needed me to do something, and I would have to drive all the way back over there on a Saturday night. And you know, most people are like, "Oh yeah, the game's over, you're done. Like let's go party, man."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "No, I gotta go ride, man."
Gotta go take care of Bullet. Yeah, my job's not done here.
No, I'm not. It's not over yet, man.
Yeah. So that whole year, like, you really didn't. I mean, you just went to class and took care of Bullet. You didn't get to live
that's all
like,
I
the
did.
college lifestyle, right? You didn't have.
I really
fun
didn't ever
as
do
much as
the
everyone
college
else.
thing at all.
Okay.
I mean, this is the first time I've been in, thanks to COVID and everything, this is the first time I've been in Stillwater this long.
Yeah.
It's taken me crazy.
Yeah.
I love Stillwater. I love it, and it's the best town to come home
up
to.
traveling, you're so used to being somewhere every weekend, you get
Right.
ingrained, oh, where are we going this weekend? Like,
Yeah,
even
the
when you get a
first-
weekend off, where am I going to go? I'm going to do
Right.
something.
No, I know, and I'm like, I've always lived on a schedule. My parents, when I said from a young age, like with the Rodeo Queen stuff, you have to learn time management.
Yeah.
And I'm a little crazy when I don't have a schedule.
Right.
I don't mind getting off of a schedule, but I love being busy, and I love at least starting with one.
Yeah. So what were you studying then that year? It's your sophomore year, right, that you're writing?
Yes.
Okay. So you've obviously picked a degree at that point. Are you kind of doing a bunch of mixed classes?
I've done like this thing that a lot of people do in college, and I've changed my major like 4 or 5 times.
So what was it originally?
I don't. Strategic communications, I think, is what I started with.
Okay.
Maybe.
Was there a reason?
One of my friends told me I would like it. And then I think I went sports management. I think I was trying to do both at the same time.
Yeah.
Because I really liked sports. I was in the athletic department offices more times than I can count, sitting in meetings and trying to get things set up for the following year and all sorts of stuff like that. I was trying to merge the connections that I had in rodeo
Yeah.
with Oklahoma State athletics, and that turned out to be a lot harder than I thought it would be.
Why is that?
But because dealing with the NCAA and the Big 12 and licensing was really hard. And then there is a major difference between the Oklahoma State Athletic Department and Oklahoma State University.
Okay.
Different licensing, different entities. They operate
Really?
completely separately.
That's really interesting.
Really, the only thing binding them is the name and the athletes, which is weird.
Yeah.
And that was a hard pill to swallow, because I was like, so I need to meet with the athletic department, marketing department.
Sure.
And then to get this stuff done for blah, 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 blah. And I also have to go meet with the marketing department for Oklahoma State University.
Yeah.
And then the Spear School of Business had wanted to do some things with me, and they have their own marketing department. And so I'm meeting with them, and then we were getting different things like putting bullet pictures on T-shirts and stuff like that. And then I had to go through licensing, like with the athletics department, and then I would have to go to the licensing at Oklahoma State because we were using Oklahoma State logo, and then anything involving bullet is athletics department. So I learned a lot, which is why I want to go to law school, because I thought it was insane.
Yeah.
But dealing with sports, I fell in love with it then.
Sure.
And I think that's when I decided I was going to be in sports management.
Yeah.
Which I'm not doing that now.
So what year was that? This was like
2017.
This is while you were
2018.
writing?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Well, I stayed very busy.
Yeah. So you figure all that out, and then I guess it must be really hard your junior year, right? Because you're like not writing. You'd have this like part of you that's
one
not.
of the most incredible things. I was working. So I was a spirit rider in the fall. The Wrangler National Finals Rodeo is in December every year in Las Vegas.
Okay.
And I got hired by a small company called Fashion Posse to come and help them kind of do some fashion things out there during the NFR. And while I was out there, I got hired by Wrangler to do some things for them, and by Justin Boots to do some other stuff for them too, because I was just coming off of being the street rider. I'd already been working with them, and so I had some opportunities to do that.
And you'd continue to do the Rodeo Queen stuff all the way through.
Well, no, the Rodeo Queen stuff I was done with in 2016.
But you had it, you trained in it, right? You know exactly all this leads to.
Yes,
you saying,
it all
yes, I can do this
weirdly
stuff.
fits together.
Yeah, sure. So when Wrangler comes to you, or Justin Boots comes to you, you're like, I can do this.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah, I'm totally, it's fine.
Yeah,
It's fine, I got it.
can catwalk and I can smile. Yeah.
Yes, I'm excellent in a room and I can shake hands.
And I can wear a cowboy hat really well.
Oh yeah. And not very long after that, I was approached by an extreme sports company called Bullfighters Only.
Okay.
And so I'm coming off of being the spirit rider. I had one more big obligation in the spring. And these people hired me to be their sideline reporter. I didn't know what that was. I never even watched a bullfight or a freestyle bullfight. I had no idea. I knew these people because I'd been working with them through rodeo.
Sure.
But it was a big difference. And so I ended up starting to do that, and I picked up my BFO deal in the spring of 2018.
Okay.
So I never stopped working, and I thought I was traveling a lot being the spirit rider, but I was pretty much staying in Oklahoma. As soon as I hit the ground with BFO, I mean, we were in Ada, Oklahoma the first weekend. The next weekend I was with them was in Woodward, Oklahoma. Got on a plane the next weekend, went to Kennewick, Washington, came home, was in Texas for a week. Came back from that, we ended up going to California when I told you my phone crashed.
Yeah.
And it was just boom, 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 boom. We were all over the country.
So you hadn't had like any like media training. You haven't gone through like the typical journalist training like some people would have to get the jobs that you've had,
and
right?
I thought about that. People were like, "Oh, you need to be like get a degree in broadcasting or in journalism or whatever." I'm like, I'm not gonna do that. That's not what I want to do with my life. I'm not doing it. I don't need it. Oops. My bad. Everything I've done at this point is pretty much trial by fire. I just have to figure it out. And I've had small training here and there, and I am obsessed with it. I love studying for things I like. And as soon as I got involved with the sports stuff, I didn't know anything about sideline reporting. I didn't even know anything about asking questions. I have been interviewed up until this point. I am 20 years old, and I have spent the last 17 years on the other side of the interview, getting questions about when's the rodeo, what does this mean, blah, 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 anything like tell me about the sport.
Preparation,
I've been
training,
selling something.
all this stuff,
I've never been on the other side of it. I never, like you learn how being interviewed as a rodeo queen, they teach you how to control an interview. Because 9 times out of 10, most people that are like news anchors or whatever don't necessarily know the right questions to ask because they're interested. Why do you wear a cowboy hat? Do you get hot in your long sleeve shirts? And I'm like, you know what?
You ask the same questions that everyone else asks.
Like everyone hears it, but they think those are good questions, and which is fine because it's great. The audience does want to hear it, but you learn how to conduct an interview or to conduct it from the other side where they want to know about why you wear a cowboy hat. You know what? I am wearing a cowboy hat because it's what we do. This is what it stands for, and you're going to see a lot of them tonight at 7 p.m. at the rodeo. And you just bring it right back to where you're supposed to.
Sure.
Now I'm like, fast forward, I am on the other side of it, and I'm like, okay, how do I do this? So back to the obsession with it. I started watching the NFL Network. I started watching ESPN. I started watching Fox Sports. And it just I became a sports fan more or less because I was just watching these sideline reporters, and I was watching commentators. I was watching the way they carried themselves, how they held the microphone, how they formulated questions, how fast they had to think on their feet. And it just, I had to figure it out on my own, honestly. And I loved that part of it.
And back to your point of what your dad said, that you are, forgive me, I'm forgetting, but you're under pressure, right? Pressure player. That's exactly what it is, especially in like a short 2 or 3, 5, 30 second maybe interview on the sideline. Like you were like, okay, you're live, camera's on, like someone's in your ear telling you it's go. And now you have to come up with a question and then a follow-up question. Maybe if you get a bad answer or you get someone.
Oh man, the first time I had someone in my ear. Oh man.
Like but the answers that
I'm like, you can see me. I'll have to find you the interview because you'll laugh at me. I'm like. I'm like, Elise, you need to smile. And I'm like, I'm really sorry.
Trying my best.
I've never done this before.
So this was like while you were obviously still at OSU studying every weekend.
I'm still there.
You're still there, but you were going and picking up deals, and then you get obsessed with it. You really take into it and start researching it and getting. And it's something like same as you. I don't have any training in journalism or background or podcasting or whatever.
It's something you became passionate about.
Yeah, and something that you just learn by doing it, right? It's easy to have a conversation regardless if the microphones are on or not. Like we can still have a conversation, and like that is how it has helped me as well. Is just adapt and just have better conversations.
What do you think about when you're setting up an interview or you're doing it, or when you think about what people want to hear? Like what is going through your mind about this is how I want it done?
I'm like selfishly, I don't do that much research. So like the interviews, like and to that point, the interviews that I've done a lot of research, because I've done the research, I already know the answers, so I don't ask the right questions.
Yeah.
Right? So I come into it totally as fresh as I can be. I know enough, but I come into it as fresh as I can be so that I'm asking questions that like I really don't know the answer to, rather than, oh, I'm going to ask you this question because I've done the research, I know the answer, I know where it's going, and it might lead to another question.
Right.
Sometimes there's that, but yeah, that I don't. I try not to do too much research because then for me it's ruined sometimes, because it ruins the authenticity and like the realness of like my reaction, right? Like I didn't, when I asked you earlier what degree, I expected you to say journalism, and like broadcasting, right, or something like that. Not I haven't decided yet. Like everything's just come to, and that's what makes the story great.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
When I think about interviewing people, and I've always told like my bullfighters and stuff, I'm like, this is a conversation between you and I, and I'll like point at the camera, I'm like, that they want to hear. Yeah. And that's it.
That's exactly what it is.
I tell them that because that's how I picture it, but then I also picture the fact that I like more or less than like a sideline reporter or an interviewer, you're kind of like a liaison between people that want to know something about this person. Like you said, you don't know anything about them either. And then the person that they want to hear from. And so you have to be able to take the information from them and break it down for the audience. Yeah. And I love that. Yeah. Yeah. It's like making connections for people, and I love it.
And some of like some of the stuff you mentioned earlier with you talking about, like the acronyms, right? A lot of people listening to this, they're ag people, so they understand, right? Like I remember when I interviewed Blaine Arthur, she was talking about FFA, and I had no idea what FFA was. And I was like, what is that? Like you asked that follow-up question too, like, can you spell it out, whatever it is. And that's happened as well with some other stuff. But yeah, you're right. It's you're a liaison. It's totally right. So that stuff's been a lot of fun then, traveling around, and that has helped you get in the spotlight, pick up more deals, and pick up more business opportunities?
Yeah, it really has. And one of so bringing things again full circle. Yeah. The aunt that I got the barrel horse from, her chosen aunt, she was a news anchor back in New Mexico. And I mean, she's bilingual, so she was from Lordsburg, New Mexico, and it was also being broadcast to Chihuahua, Mexico. And so she had been on TV for however long before. And I wish I would have known her back then, but she was really helpful. And she told me when I first got started, and I was like, I need to figure out how to do whatever question. I don't remember what I asked her, and it was probably a selfish question. But she goes, if you were in this to get your face and your story on TV, you're in it for the wrong reasons. It is not about you. It is about them. Yeah. And ever since then, I was like, she's right. Yeah. And that's why that goes back to the liaison deal. You get to help tell someone's story. And a lot of times, and being an athlete, like you guys don't have a lot of training in that instance. And so you kind of have to take care of someone and help make sure that who they are as a person gets across to other people. Yeah. And so the opportunities from that, I don't know. I hope that comes across to people first when they see me on camera or see me doing things, is it really is important to me to showcase other people. And I mean, I've been very fortunate and very blessed to have worked with some companies like Ride Television and the Cowboy Channel and RFD TV because of what I've done with bullfighters only and things like that. I've grown a lot. I got to work with a videographer last weekend that I worked with at my very first bullfight. I haven't worked with him in 2 years, and he goes, "Man, you've come a long way." And I was like, I made a joke about it. I was like, I haven't seen you since my first one. He goes, yeah, you've really grown up a lot. Yeah. And I was like, oh, what, you mean I don't do the finger guns on camera anymore? Yeah, I know.
There's always little things in it that you see, like, and I sometimes listen to like an old podcast, and I'll put it on for maybe 30 seconds to like listen to it.
Do you like hearing yourself talk?
No, I hate it. Can't stand it.
I'm a narcissist. I kind of like it.
I mean, you get used to it, don't you? But yeah.
Well, it's game tape.
Yeah. When I have to edit and stuff, I'm like, great, like, because it's just me that does all this. Everyone's like, oh, how many of you do? Who am I speaking? Like you earlier said, who am I speaking to on Instagram? Oh, it's me. Like I'm the only one that does it so far. But yeah, it's you get used to it, don't you? You get used to hearing yourself and get used to seeing yourself on camera and seeing how you act. I'm my toughest critic. Like, and you have to be, right? Like it's. Seeing yourself is much harder than just listening, isn't it? you know, because you're like, why am I fidgeting? What am I doing?
Yeah, like my hair looked weird.
Yeah, like little thing. Yeah, no one else notices because everyone's eyes are on the person you're interviewing.
Exactly. It's
right?
not about you.
Yeah.
But they do notice if something is wrong with you.
Well, and some of the time that when you're on camera, sometimes the camera's behind you, so they're shooting over your shoulder, and they can only just see you, your hand, the microphone, and which is great, right? Like you don't have to worry about looking good or bad. But you know, and even when we were supposed to record this last week, you said, "Hey, sorry, I can't. Like, I'm going down to Dallas because Cavenders are calling me down. Like,
yeah,
I
felt so bad.
Don't worry about it. It worked out fine. So, tell me about that. What was the? Because obviously Cavenders is now a new opportunity that you have too.
Well, and we're actually doing it like last week was prep for what we're doing this week.
Okay.
So I wasn't supposed to have to go down there. I went down with my aunt and uncle to the American Rope Horse Fraternity Association World Finals. And so I was originally going to be down there for that, and I wasn't supposed to leave until like Wednesday or Thursday. And then I got called from Cavenders about, let's go with an opportunity for some things they've got coming up. I'm not going to out the project we're working on. But they called me about getting ready for this project. And I was like, oh, dang, okay, like when? And she was like, well, really sorry to tell you, but like the deadline is like the 30th. And I was like,
thanks.
I'm about to be gone for 5 days, but it's fine. She goes, no, you're good, like you can handle it. And again, it goes back to the pressure player. I'm like, okay, this is what I need to get done. I need to go get my hair put back in. I need to get nails put back on because I'm just at home chilling.
Well, it's
chilling.
COVID, right?
Yeah.
Like, I have no events
I'm
going
at school.
on.
I'm not doing anything. I wear a hoodie every day.
Yeah.
And so I had to go down there and had to go to one of their bigger stores and get some clothes picked out and meet with their social media coordinator about what we're going to be working on and just kind of get everything set up for that. And then we were supposed to do it on Monday.
Yeah.
And then thanks to ice and power outage and whatnot. And then we were trying to push it to like Tuesday, and then it just kept raining and never stopped raining. And now we're gonna.
Now we're recording on Thursday, and the sun's coming out, which is great. But all the the wind's picking up, and all the trees are falling over.
I know.
That's nuts.
Now we're actually gonna end up doing the project on Saturday.
Cool. That's
and
good.
hopefully it'll be dry enough. But
yeah.
Hey guys, sorry to cut this one short, but this will be the end of part 1 for the episode with Elise Wade. Part 2 will be next week as our Oklahoma Hall of Fame episode, catching up back from this episode and kind of diving into what Elise has planned for the future, kind of what she's doing now, finishing up school, going on the Monster Jam stuff as a reporter, and all this other amazing cool stuff that she's been able to do by, you know, just riding horses and getting the experiences and doing all the things that we've talked about up to this point. So real sorry. I know this is an amazing episode, and sorry there was really no place to cut it short. So I basically cut it right in the middle because we had a podcast for about 2 hours. So really appreciate you guys listening. Keep an eye out for part 2 next week on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame episode with Elise Wade. And yeah, have a great week, and we'll catch you next episode. Cheers. This podcast was presented by the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, who've been telling Oklahoma's story through its people since 1927. Follow them online at oklahomahof.com and definitely on Instagram at oklahomahof. Catch you next episode. Cheers.
Thank you for listening. We are inspired by those around us and hope that you are too. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review so we can keep telling your stories. For more great Oklahoma content, follow This Is Oklahoma on Facebook and Instagram.